Morytania, the land of the vampires. We really have to dig a little deeper in this region to pull the maximum value out of Morytania. So what is it that we're looking to do here? Now, the first thing obviously is PVM, because there's a lot of it. And then you start looking around and trying to find, well, what else besides PVM is there for me to do? And so you dig a little deeper, deep in the trenches, and you find more PVM. So you start looking around a little bit more. Surely there's something else besides PVM here, right? Surely. And then you think you found it. There it is. Even more PVM. And a little bit of agility. So since so much of this region is PVM, I want to start actually by talking about the skilling, knock it out of the way, and then focus into the meat and potatoes of this region. So obviously when it comes to skilling, we always like to start off with our combats. And since we're doing so much PVM, we are in fact doing every single combat. There is just too many bosses to kill here. And as such, you will just passively get 99 in basically all of these. You don't need to go out of your way to train these skills outside of getting some base levels to then do the content that's here. But once you have 60s, 70s in your combats, start sending the PVM here. And by the time you are done getting all the tasks, the KCs, the loot, the gear, all the various armor sets that exist, you'll easily have 99 in basically all of these. Now, the one thing that is a little different with that is Slayer. And I do want to mention that the Morytania Slayer Tower is located, obviously, in Morytania. And it has a couple of really nice Slayer monsters here. You have Necryals, you have Gargoyles, you have Abyssal Demons. They're all very, very convenient, easy to get to, and all have a pretty good loot table for what they are. Do note that this is a single combat area. Like I said, there's not a lot of skilling in this region. So what we're going to do is we're just going to cross out literally everything that is basically non-existent here, which leaves us with 3 non-combat related skills. Now, the reason why you get to do agility here is you have access to the best agility XP in the game, starting at level 52 agility. And not only is it the best XP per hour, it also gives you some insane loot, and that is the Sepulcher. Now, the loot that the Sepulcher gives you is everything from high alchs, things like plate bodies, runite bolts, gives you a ton of adamant bolts, which you can then turn into ruby bolt E's, especially for you range doers who need as many of those as possible. This is by far one of the easiest and best ways of getting those. You then have other things like prayer potions, sand fuse, Renar seeds, to really, really get you prepped up and ready to go into all that PVM content you have. So very, very, very strong from a loot standpoint, on top of it already being the best XP that you can get in the game. So very strong, highly, highly, highly recommend doing Sepulcher, especially if you take this region. There's really only one single thing in this region that you can actually thieve, and those are Vires. And Vires loot is actually really bad. So why would we be thieving these? Well, the answer is there is a single unique that you can get from it, the Blood Shard, which lets you make the Blood Fury. Now, the Blood Fury is a necklace that heals you as you deal damage. It's really, really good. That passive is very strong, especially in a PVM focused area. The problem is it has charges and you need to recharge it. And you recharge it by using more Blood Shards, so you're thieving more Vires over and over and over again. Now, luckily, there is a relic called Trickster that is a tier 1 starter relic that allows you to get double loot. So with that, you would get 2 blood shards every time you do to give you some extra charges, which is great. But then you can also pair it with something like Asgardia and get your Rogue's outfit. And if you have that Rogue's outfit, it's actually multiplicative, which means you would actually get 4 blood shards every time you get one. And it's pretty likely that they actually buff the drop rates on these, so they're a little bit more common too. And with the relic, you're also no-fail, so you don't have to worry about food, and you can just pickpocket away, and this will actually be a pretty reclaimed way of getting a really, really, really strong necklace. So very, very good. We have Runecrafting, and this is actually in here because of a pretty recent update, which is the True Blood Altar. Now, the True Blood Altar is, unlike the Zaya Blood Altar, is an actual, Runecrafting altar location that you use Pure Essence with. And the reason why that's actually good in comparison to the Zaya Blood Altar is you can use your last recall crystal of memories to teleport here, back and forth between here and a bank, to just make your blood runes to fund your Sang Staff, your scythe that you get from doing these raids, these things that use blood runes. And you'll need a lot of blood runes. You can just make them all super fast, and the XP should be really, really, really strong. So very, very, very much recommend doing runecrafting using blood runes, especially if you're in this region, because you are going to need so many of them over the course of all the PVM content you're going to be doing. So with all that said, there's not much more we can do to avoid talking about the elephant in the room, the spider in the room, Theater of Blood, the PVM, the bread and butter of Morytania. Now, Theater of Blood is really the end game content of this region. You need a lot of KC for a lot of different tasks. There is a lot of gear and loot that you can get from Theater of Blood that will all have a task, from getting the most common drops like in a Vernic to getting a full Justicer set. And that takes a lot of time, especially when you consider that Theater of Blood is not a solo raid really. It is a team raid. It is something that you need a group of people to do with. There's some balance here, and team forming will be a complicated thing. But if you get a good group going and you get people who know how to do Theater of Blood, or you're learning and people are teaching you, this is some of the most fun that you will have, is blasting through Theater of Blood quicker than you can imagine. And getting those drops at the end feels so wonderful, and the drop rate increase is nuts that you'll be seeing purples every couple raids. It'll be a blast. It's so much fun. It is definitely the cornerstone PVM content of Morytania. Now, Barrows is some like mid-gamey content. And honestly, depending on your regions, like this can be pretty early content for you. And getting any of these full completed sets, regardless of what your other regions are looking like, Morytania can self-sustain you almost completely when it comes to your gear. But then we have a couple other actual bosses, things that are a little bit more end gamey. The Grotesque Guardians, Dawn and Dusk. These are relatively easy bosses. They're not super complicated. You have to have a Slayer task for them. They don't have a ton of gear for you, but there will definitely be tasks surrounding them, which is totally fine. And then you have the Nightmare, and the solo variant, Thasani's Nightmare. That is really, really good when it comes to mage weapons and powered staffs. You get your Nightmare staffs, you get your orbs to upgrade it, turn it into something like the Volatile staff. It is very, very strong. And there will be a lot of points surrounding this boss, just like Theater of Blood. And so you can expect to do a good chunk of Nightmare if you choose this region. Like I said, this region is a PVM region, and you can't do that without a lot of bosses, and this region has it. There's so many points tied to these bosses, and that is what you're going to be doing. Now, looking at the quests and diaries here, one thing I want you to be prepared for is to do Sins of the Father. Unlike almost every other region where their main quest line is fully complete, in Morytania, Sins of the Father is not complete, but that line is complete all the way up to that point. So you will have to do the final boss, which is melee. So if you happen to be going a mage or a ranged route, you are going to have to get your melee stats up so that way you can kill that boss, because that boss is not easy with mediocre stats because the weapon that you are required to use is so bad. On the plus side, you will actually get the XP drop at the end of this quest because you did actually complete it, and you will get the XP multiplier on this. So if this is your third region that you're choosing, at that point, it's pretty likely that you'll have 12x the XP, somewhere in that ballpark, and that XP drop at the end is going to be huge. And then kind of secondly to that, diaries. So the diaries here are kind of weird. They have some RNG element to it, and it can take some time. And it's probably something you should do at some point as you're doing all the other tasks. Hopefully you finish all the RNG stuff. If not, coming back later and just wrapping them out is totally fine, but it's not something you really need to rush or prioritize, but you probably do them slowly over the league. You do have 8 weeks to knock them out. With that, we'll go into the recap. So as a reminder, there is a lot of PVM. It is a very, very, very PVM centric region. And not only that, it's very, very melee focused. Every boss can use melee on, and it's very strong on, and usually ideal to use melee for basically every single boss that was listed for this region. But the caveat to that is Theater of Blood has some roles. You need freezers. You kind of need a ranger in every single Theater of Blood group. And if you want to come to Morytania and you want to be that major that's coming in and freezing and binding the Nihilus or the spider spawns in Maiden, right? That is something you can do. And you'll find a team probably way faster than the 500 other Morytania melees that are all standing around in the same world hoping to find a team, right? And you'll also be able to really capitalize on like the nightmare staffs and the sang staff way better than everybody else in your group will be. So it is something to consider that you don't have to go melee, but most people who will go here will be melee because of how melee centric it is. From a skilling standpoint, agility is actually insane. It will be so fast to get 99. I think 52 to 99 will only take a couple of hours if you wait to get your better XP multipliers. And then Thieving, if you take the Trickster Relic, will be so good for funneling in those blood shards and really making sure you have them for all of the PVM content you do. So very, very, very strong. And overall will probably be one of the most picked regions because what it has to offer is something that a lot of people really enjoy doing. Reminder to subscribe so you don't miss tomorrow's episode.